government provides billions of dollars every year to the states to support public education, and it's a lot of money. Are you confident that the Republican draft proposal would ensure that the states who take the federal dollars will be held accountable for improving student achievement?
The question I have basically is, does continued reliance on annual testing best strike the right balance, or what is the most effective pared-back version of accountability that still ensures a quality education for all?
Do you believe that giving states the flexibility to choose grade span testing would help resolve the concerns about over-testing that have been expressed?
Is it more important that we know what students know, or is it more important that we know students are learning?
Can you design a computer adaptive test, say, where you're filling in circles? Can you design something that gets more at the kind of thing you want to measure?
Thank you, Chairman Alexander and Senator Murray, for your vision and for this opportunity to offer my remarks regarding the impact of testing and accountability on our public school children. Last year, over 50% of our parents at our school refused to allow their children to take the New York State Common Core assessments, what we now have known nationally as opting out. In New York State, at least, these tests have changed from year to year. The cut scores have changed from year to year, which makes them flawed and invalid. When parents and educators have voiced concerns, they've been accused of coddling. I want to challenge that assumption. The great crime is that the focus on testing has taken valuable resources and time away from programming, social studies, arts and physical education, special education services, and ELL programs. At my school, we no longer have a librarian, and our parent association works full-time to fund the needed arts and music programs that are not covered by our budget any longer. And we are one of the lucky schools. What about schools where parents must work to just survive? There is nothing more painful to watch or forced to be complicit with than the minimalizing that is happening in our schools. Teachers, students, and parents are finding themselves in a position of whether or not to push back or leave. So who is left to receive these tests and accompanying sanctions? Who are the children receiving scripted curricula while losing recess physical education and all other enrichment programs? I want to remind folks that the Latin root of assessment needs to sit alongside. Until we have teachers and policymakers sitting alongside and getting to know our students in our classrooms in deep and meaningful ways, we cannot fully understand the state of public education. And I sit here as a sole female, and this is a field dominated by women. No corporate-made multiple-choice test will give you that data. Last year, I decided that I'm obligated and accountable to my students and their families, and that is why, as a teacher of conscience, I will refuse to administer tests that reduce my students to a single metric, and will continue to take this position until the role of standardized assessments are put in their proper place. We just celebrated the life of Martin Luther King Jr. In his letter from a Birmingham jail, King affirms, "One has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws." He quotes St. Augustine, who said, "An unjust law is no law at all." So long as education policy continues to be shaped by the interests of corporate profiteering and not the interests of our public school children, we will resist these unjust testing laws. I am hopeful that we can sit alongside each other and do the hard work of answering the questions most central to our democracy. What is the purpose of public education in a democratic society? How can we ensure that all children receive enriching and equitable education? And how do we support teachers and schools in carrying out their missions to educate all? I think there has been this disconnect and this really far removed idea of how these policies were playing out in the daily lives of school children and their teachers. Okay, now we have to stop everything we're doing that's meaningful and that's relevant to these kids, and we're gonna play a game called test prep. What was frustrating for me was that there were several the speakers and the panelists who kept talking about the data. But you know what really felt reaffirming was after, the panel, when people came up to me and said, finally, teacher voice at these hearings. And I think we need to see a panel of just teachers. The senator from Rhode Island really hit home for me why I was there.
The superstructure of education supervision, I'm not sure passes the test of being worth all the expense and all the trouble. And it's very discouraging to teachers in Rhode Island who've talked to me. They hear about, the race to the top money that comes into the state, and the state gets a big grant. And it's like the rain falling over the desert, where the rain comes pouring out of the clouds, but by the time you're actually at the desert floor, not a raindrop falls. It's all been absorbed in between. I have never had a teacher say to me, boy, Race to the Top gave me just what I need in terms of books or a whiteboard or something that I can use to teach the kids.
That hit home to me, and I started getting a little emotional. I was trying to fight back tears because it's exactly why I'm here. I can say to a body of legislators or politicians that I'm a conscientious objector to these tests, and if more of us push this, I think we could definitely make change, and that gives me hope.